We're starting about a minute early today, so I don't see the issue in starting with that, in case you're wondering. This is still Armored Warfare, but just recent events within the game have led me back to this for this week. Alright, so, here we go. It is another week. Another week's in. And here we go. Gonna do some more gameplay, a little bit more tech talk. Tech night stuff again, like last week. Although this time, we finally have it correct on the first run. So congratulations to me actually getting the software and everything right. Hopefully. This is still on a delay, fairly sizable delay, which is why it started about a minute early, so I did not make it start late, unlike last week. Alright, so, this week we have a few fairly interesting topics, including a potential SKU we've not heard of before from Intel, another potential SKU from NVIDIA, a potential SKU from AMD, as well as potential names from AMD. So, let's hop into the first battle, and actually, we're going to try and get that global ops in, which I've managed to avoid for 2 weeks. There we go. Or for about a week or two, I don't know. Yeah, it was a week. Alright, so, I mentioned Intel. We do know that Intel is preparing, in about a month, the new 7th gen core for the desktop. Under the codename Kaby Lake S. We knew that there'd be several i7s, including one K SKU, several i5s, including a K SKU, and one Xeon in this cluster. So, we knew that much. The part we now know is supposedly there'll be a Core i3 K SKU, named Core i3. This thing was 7350K. So, hold on while I go out and, try to not, kill the stream off completely. So, here we go. So that's what it was, this supposed SKU, which will be a dual-core, hyper-threaded, supporting overclocking with the multiplier, which is something you don't usually see in Intel's Core i3 series. So, it'll be interesting to see what this is, and if it is true. On top of that, we're looking at, as I said, we're also looking at a turbo on it of 4 gigahertz or 4.2 gigahertz, I don't remember, I'd have to go and look. But, that is approximately the speeds we're looking at with said CPU. That being said, I'm more interested in the Core i5 and the Core i7 K SKUs than the Core i3, but the Core i3 is a fairly good position to pop a K SKU. So, on to AMD's naming schemes, because this is actually probably the best segue we can do into this. What the hell? Supposedly early January, we should be seeing, which is actually in about 2 months from today, a little under 2 months from today, we should be seeing the SR7 series launch. SR7 is, what is it? Summit Ridge, high-end Summit Ridge chips. So that's the beginning of Zen. We don't have any specs on those that I have on hand. Then after that will be the SR5 series. Get anything? Notice anything here? SR7 for the high end. SR5 is the mid range. What is going on? Alright, and then now if you're getting where this is going, what is going to be the low-end chip series called? SR3, if you've noticed that much, how they're going with that. It is pretty much picking up with Intel's naming, and we basically got GIPed from the game, so we're just gonna pop into a hard queue instead and get immediately. Yeah, this is a completely stock Alex M1A3 120mm cannon. I don't have anything on it. Only thing I have on it is the retrofit, a different ammo loadout, that's it. But yeah, back onto, so, high end, we're looking at potentially $350 plus, probably all the way up to $500 for 8-core, 16-thread CPUs. Actually, they're SOCs. They're not CPUs. They are full systems on chips, or a full system on a chip. So, there you go. Now, the next part is SR7 SOCs, or SR5 SOCs, are going to be slightly lower than that price range, and then SR3 SOCs will be even lower. Now, we don't have dates as to when SR5 and SR3 will launch, but SR7 will launch at approximately the same time, or actually slightly after KB Lake S. So they'll be going up against KB Lake S SKUs, namely Core i7 700K, Core i5 6600K,
Identified. Hostile tank. Target destroyed.
Take out the refinery's generators. That'll stop the gas flow while we finish the job.
Optics repaired. Get optics down! Identified. Hostile tank. Sights up. Sights down!
Trying to surround you. Don't lose the refinery.
Alright, sight is up. Identified target. Hostile tank.
Wait, so sorry about that. That was... I don't usually try to include people walking in on me. I might actually end up disappearing audio-wise. That is what the game plays for. So, like I said, and actually was going into this, potentially, the other one to compete with SR7 will be the Core i5 or i3 7350K CPU. Which would be one of the first low-end overclocking CPUs that would allow budget PC gamers to start overclocking. Something that Intel's never really gone into. Intel's really big on the high end, the enthusiast end of everything. Not on the super low end. Intel currently is more or less... They're actually very present in everything. They're actually way bigger than AMD. Which is why... I have no clue why. Which is probably why AMD is trying to take some of Intel's thunder from the Core i series
Good job.
and plop it into the
Armored reinforcements
SR series.
and infantry is en route to secure the facility.
And using pretty much the same naming schematic as Intel's Core i series. So, it's my 2 cents on this topic. Now, the other ones we've heard of from AMD is potentially a Pascal's NVIDIA. A Polaris 10 based Radeon RX 490 that's potentially more powerful than 1080, or than the GTX 1080 GPU. Likelihood is very unlikely that it's more powerful if it's a Polaris-based chip. Now, if it's a Vega 10-based chip, or processor, the likelihood is very, very real. So, now here's the thing. If it's a Polaris 10-based chip, we could be seeing it launch within a month. A month. That's not uncommon for this current generation of chips. To hear about it less than a month before it drops. Heck, possibly even a week before it drops. It's been happening a lot lately. So, it would not surprise me if it's that case. But it beating the GTX 1080 and even potentially Titan X in performance at Polaris 10. No, not happening. Now, Vega 10, potentially. Vega is basically touted as the Titan, as the Pascal killer, the 1080 killer, the 1070 killer, the Titan X killer. Yeah, that's where it's touted to be. It's gonna have 8 gigs of HBM memory on board on the first, or on the lowest end SKU most likely. So, who knows? I honestly don't think it will be a Polaris 10 chip. I actually think it quite likely will be a Vega 10. Actually, no, other way around it, because there was speculation that it will launch this year. If it's going to be this year, it would have to be Polaris 10. So there you go. Now, on that note, NVIDIA. New leaks about the GTX 1080 Ti. I still don't think it's possible at this point. If you look at the 1080, or 1070 to 1080 price, there's a decent gap there. $380 to $600. Okay. We did see that price gap before. Not really. It wasn't that dramatic when you had 970, 980, 980 Ti, 10X. You didn't see that giant freaking gap of over $100 there. or not over $100, but almost $300. Actually, it's a little under 200 this time. But you didn't see that huge price delta. You saw something about 450, 500, something about 600, 650. But then you also had the 350s, 300, 350. And then you had another one at 200. You had those price gap points filled. This time there's 380, 600, 1200. Honestly, where are you going to slot in there? Because here's the thing, you have to be careful when you slot in a card. Will it cannibalize the cards below it? So, look at it. 1060, 6 gig, 1060, 3 gig. 1063 gig is slotted just low enough and just underperforming it, or just small enough in size that it does not cannibalize the bigger 1060 market. Because if you had identical performance for cheaper, what are you going to do? You're going to buy the cheaper. Now, honestly, 3 gigs is not going to help you out very much in 4K resolution. I'm not gaming in 4K. I'm gaming in 1080p. That's what I happen to have panel-wise. So, what are you going to do? You're going to do it with that. You're going to go for the cheaper one you can that gives you the same performance. Okay, so that's what you're looking at. That's the same with the 1050 and 1050 Ti. 1050 is just the right size to not cannibalize 1050 Ti sales, because it's just enough cheaper. And also vice versa. You have that niche market at that price point where somebody wants, just something a little bit better than their iGPU. They don't want to run their iGPU. They're doing, say, light gaming, 1080p gaming. They don't want their iGPU at that. They're definitely not playing games like Armored Warfare. Because here's the thing, Armored Warfare is CryEngine. CryEngine is very demanding. You're most likely, although it could probably run that. I don't happen to have one on hand. I don't happen to have a 1060 on hand. I know that the 1050 will probably do Armored Warfare rather solidly. 1050 and 1050 Ti are approximately around where the 960 is, and I played this on this game with a 960 card, or graphics card, GTX 960, for several months before I even had a 1070. And if you've been watching the frame counter that's up in here usually, I'm getting over 100 FPS. I was getting about 40 on just slightly lower resolutions with that 960. In fact, here you go. Freaking ultra 1080p. No VSync. I don't like the freaking VSync. Render mode normal. Yeah, that's okay. It's gonna drive me nuts. But you can see where it is. That is why you need it to be like that. Actually, I don't even know. Hold on, we're gonna see. I usually do play with a small amount of MSAA. And it wants to actually keep it this time. It's just because I'm playing at a lower resolution. I want it to look better. So that's how it works. And I actually, heck, even after I turned on 2x MSAA, I've got higher FPS. Because here's the thing, in this screen I don't have an FPS counter. I don't actually know. I'll let it start cycling the images around again. And if we don't get a battle soon, I will actually take us into a PVE mission. So, there you go. But I'm right now using the software OBS to actually record frames on this. OBS caps out the stream at 60 FPS. Yet I'm pushing approximately twice that. You're actually seeing probably a slightly slower image than what I'm actually seeing. Or more high-speed image, because I'm actually firing, or this thing is running at a full 100 to 120 FPS. Whereas the stream's only running at about 60. So, here we go. See, it's starting to cycle. The stream's running at 60. which means I'm at 60 or higher frames per second right now. So you probably aren't going to notice much of a difference other than this is running smoother. But yeah, that's it. So yes, 1080 Ti potential. Now, here's where I was thinking personally. Here were my personal expectations of a 1080 Ti, if there is going to be one. GP102, smaller. If there's no choice, we already have the full fat GP104. GP104's full size is 1080. So, we have the GTX 1080. We have the full-sized GP102, or 104. There is no GP102 full size for GeForce yet. That is only available in Quadro for about $5,000 to $6,000 per card. You're not looking at something cheap for the full GP102. The only GP102 solution available currently in GeForce is a $1,200 beast of a graphics card with 12 gigs of G5X memory, running at 10 gigahertz. It is a very quick system. It is very massive. It also has the full 250 watt TDP, only available from NVIDIA. You cannot buy it from AIBs like EVGA. You cannot buy it from everybody else. It's only available from NVIDIA. Nobody else. So you have to spend your $1,200 directly at NVIDIA. Now, as I said, I gave you those specs. Those are the specs that are really, just watch. I expect a further cut back version of it, of the GP102, if there would be a 1080 Ti. Still would have to be larger than any GP104 design. Otherwise, why the hell did you do it? It would have, other than for the bus size. And then on top of that, you need to retard it enough to reduce how much it cannibalizes sales of 1080 and Titan X. So I was looking at cutting back. You'd either cut back the memory to 8 gigabytes or to 10 gigabytes. You would not keep a full 12 unless you're putting GDDR5 on it. And I mean 5, not 5X. If you were doing the 5X, it would have to be a lower amount. And then poof, you have a slightly retarded setup. You have it, and also you're reducing the TDP by a lot. If you're reducing that TDP by a lot, then you've reduced it enough. But you'd still be looking at probably about 200 watts pulled of TDP. So, that's what you're looking at, in my mind. The specs we've received are like 3,380 something CUDA cores. So it's shaved further back from, or I think it was like 33. But I know it's shaved further back from Titan X. On top of that, it's got 10 gigabytes of GDDR5X running at 10 gigahertz. Okay, so what I'm saying is it's aligning with my speculation. Yes. So it's shaved further back. It's got the smaller memory buffer. It's still the full-sized memory bus of Titan X. And on top of that, you're looking at probably a lower TDP. I don't remember if there's a TDP thrown out there either. But we're also looking, but this thing is, it's still not retarded enough to not cannibalize Titan X or potentially Quadro sales. Yes, the 10 gigabytes is a step in the right direction, but the drop from about, I think it was 11.2 or 11.5 teraflops to 10.8 teraflops is not enough. The reason still has an insane clock speed. Clock speed beats anything from the Maxwell generation, the 900 series. There is nothing, it's just outperforming everything on the market. And then they're saying $700. Are you nuts? That would be really a dick move. And the reason I say really a dick move, you're looking at taking AIBs that are producing $700+ 1080s and saying, here's the MSRP for a brand new card that is more powerful than the 1080. And it's cheaper than all your big giant 1080s. Have fun. What are they going to do? They're going to start competing with each other by producing 1080 Ti's that are cheaper than their competition and better than their competition. 1080s. So, say it was to happen and Zotac wanted to cannibalize on sales of potential, EVGA 1080 classifieds. What are they going to do? They're going to make something that has similar specs out of a 1080 Ti at that price or cheaper. So we're saying huge, or not quite huge, but we're talking like a more highly performing card that's going to perform better without the overclocking necessity of the classified. EVGA's only response at that point would be to cut the price on the classified and slot in a 1080 Ti classified. So, you see what I'm talking about? We're just dealing with that. So, there you go. And that's my 2 cents on it. And I'm actually getting lower FPS now. That's insane. Okay, we're actually going to turn off MSAA. Or anti-aliasing, I don't care. Although I'm not performing any better, okay. Oh well.
Reloading. These so-called lions of
And say, so long as the input lag's not too terrible, I'm happy.
Teach them a harsh lesson. Black Company, retake the oil refinery from the lions. Identified. Hostile tank.
But yes, as I said, 1080 Ti potentially. I honestly would expect if they're going to slot it in at $700, they're also going to drop the price, or the MSRP, on 1080 before they do that. So, there you go. Now, in case you're wondering, yes, I'm very big on Windows. I'm a PC person. I'm not big into Macs. Macs are solid for, in case you're wondering, my favorite, the only reason I would buy a Mac, rendering video. Or making, or doing anything content creation. Not producing the video or streaming like I am right now. I would still be doing that on a PC. But I'd then be transferring any video files to a Mac at that point. If I had a Mac. I don't have a Mac. It's just that they happen to be supported better for content creation than for gaming. That is just what they just happen to fill that role better. They're also a more expensive product, usually. That being said, I could easily get you specs to build a more get a more expensive PC than any Mac on the market. That will also operate better than that said Mac. Just how you look at it. Now, that being said, we're actually going to talk about the MacBook Pro, the new one. So, the new MacBook Pro, in case you haven't heard, it's got 2 different variants, a 13 and a 15-inch variant. Both have, if I remember, it was like, they both have touch bars. I don't remember if it was OLED or what kind of display on the touch bars. They also have very, very lacking I/O. they do run Skylake CPUs.
Good. The Lions will count.
They do not run KB
But you
Lake.
must hold.
The reason for that is the CPUs that would typically go into a MacBook Pro do not exist yet for KB Lake. They do exist, though, for Skylake. We're talking typically the use or higher-end U SKU.
Now, run to the capture zone.
And Skylake has all of H, all of S, all of U, all of Y. In case you're wondering what that is, Y and U are the low-end desktop, or not desktop, laptop components. Got lower draw powers.
This is good.
They are
We have the
slower
high
overall.
under our control.
Y and U traditionally carry a lot more dual-core SKUs than normal.
Strike down.
In fact, that's what they used primarily in the 13-inch model. There are no 13-inch quad-core setups. Also, they don't support more than 8 gigabytes of RAM. Base, at least. And that's, as I said, base at the very minimum. And on top of that, it's soldered directly onto the logic board. So if you really needed to upgrade your memory, you're out of luck. You have to have a way of soldering, you have to get a hold of the actual chips for it. And enough of them. High enough density chips to throw them onto your, or in equipment to solder them directly onto your logic board of your computer. Not everybody has the thousands upon thousands of dollars required to do that. I couldn't even do that. And so you're not going to get a 32 gigabyte variant of it. On top of that, the solid state drives on them are not customizable. You get whatever you order, and then whatever that is soldered onto the board again. So it's non-customizable. You lose your device, or your device dies, you're screwed. On top of that, they glued the battery directly onto the case of it. So, once again, it's really hard to replace that battery. Battery completely just gives up the ghost. You're screwed. Can't just buy a new one and install it. No. You have to somehow remove something that's glued on.
Alright, optics online.
And then install it. Very difficult. I honestly do not like this design, these choices by them. But oh well. It seems to actually be working. They're actually selling it pretty darn well, apparently. But not the best choice ever. On top of that, lack of DGPU in the 13-inch model. Questionable. The lack of a solid DGPU in the 15-inch model. Questionable. Still. Oh well. Now, that's just my take on it. I'm just here to give my 2 cents. It's all up to what you think about the product. You are the one who buys it. Now, on top of that, the other one I want to talk about is... crap, what was it again? Okay, we're actually going to do a different topic again. We're going back to EVGA. I mentioned them earlier. So, this week my EVGA... or my kit for my EVGA 1070 arrived. I did install it. I did make a video of it. That is on YouTube. I uploaded that the same night, or actually the night I did it. So, in case you're wondering about the video quality on that, it's really crappy because I do not have anything better than a 720p, or I didn't have anything better than a 720p webcam on hand. So it's recorded with a 720p webcam. Oh well. And it wasn't very hard to install. It wasn't bad at all. It was just a few screws removed. Or actually an army of screws. There were a lot of screws actually. I forgot about that. Since you have to remove the entire backplate is just loaded with screws. So many screws everywhere. There are screws everywhere on that thing. Not to mention some of the screws you have to remove with the new kit, because actually they changed the kit before they issued them because of other complaints. You now have to remove the base plate. Which if you've seen the ACX coolers, they consist of several different parts. You have your I/O bracket, which is on every graphics card, at least for desktops. You have your PCB. Every graphics card has one. You then have, depending on the model, or actually no, everyone has some sort of cooler on board. Depends on what you're using. The desktops typically have, dependent on who's using it, either a giant heatsink fan combination of any kind that includes blowers and ones like the ACX cooler, where it's gigantic freaking fans. And since Global Ops apparently is still a bust, I don't know what's with this. Whenever it's not like this, just the day I do this, I seem to have a good time with Global Ops queues this time of night. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Sorry. So, but I digress. Okay. So, heatsink fan combo. You have AIO coolers, like EVGA's hybrid, where it's a heatsink fan and a liquid cooling pump directly attached to the GPU that then has all the liquid and everything in it, in its loop, automatically. And this loop contains just the pump, the radiator, a fan, and some tubing between the two parts. That is it. That is the entire loop. But that's another kind of cooler. And then you have full custom water blocks. Again, another cooler. Now, ACX models have another part to it. We have another part just before that's between the cooler and the PCB.
All right, Black Company.
That would happen to be the, let's just say,
You ready? Black Company.
ooh, what is it?
There might be crucial intel
Oh, a base
stored in
plate.
those
Yes, a
cartel
base
satellite
plate.
towers. See if you can
This
retrieve
does
any
not touch
useful
every
intel
component
from
on the PCB, but it touches a good number of them. So, and it actually acts as a cooler, or part of the cooler. Basically, its entire purpose is to distribute heat from components that would not be touching the heatsink fan combo and transferring the heat to the heatsink so that the fan can exhaust it into wherever it's going. EVGA calls theirs the memory MOSFET plate. So it'll have thermal pads and all sorts of stuff. So you're actually applying thermal pads to said part. That is what what I applied the thermal pads to, primarily. Memory, in my case, and actually they added memory pads to the kit because people were complaining that, hey, my card wasn't getting having the VRAM cooled by the heatsink fan because it wasn't being touched by the thermal pads. Here's the thing, I don't know for sure how widely spread that was. I'm not the manufacturer, I'm not EVGA. I am just myself. I only have one card,
I think our
and my
analysts can
card
do something
was
with
not in that group
Nice job,
that
Black Company.
it's not fully being touched. I do have pictures. I've not shared them with you guys yet, or shared them with anybody yet. Actually, I've shown like one coworker of mine this picture of the memory modules, and a number of them were being touched by the VRAM. Or not by the VRAM. I was talking about the VRAM, but being touched, but vast majority were being touched by the thermal pads. Or at least 3 of them were. I don't remember. I'd have to go actually pull up my phone because it's what it's on, which does have a far better camera than my laptop does. But I was using the phone camera or the phone already for something else, so I digress. So there you go. If you were to watch my guide, do not cut the memory pads unless you have not actually fitting properly. If they cover it all in one fell swoop, that's how they're meant to fit. They're meant to fit that you just shove them or just apply them directly to the memory, or figure out where they touch the memory, and apply them. Like that. But apply them to the base plate, not to the memory. So you want the sticky side to touch the base plate.
Keep your eyes open.
Now after that... Ow, wow. That was rude. Now after that, you have to reinstall the base plate, which requires that you flip the GPU back over with the base plate being held on, all sorts of bullcrap. It's not the most fun thing out in the world. And it's not, you can't really put the primary seat, or, really? Sir, stop it. Stop it, sir. Ow, this really hurts. Ow. Holy crap. This is like the worst I've ever seen any of my tanks get beaten up. Every module except for the ammunition rack. Rip. I also have not seen Artie take that kind of a liking to me and actually get away with that kind of bullcrap where the shell looks to have exploded well before it reaches me, yet it still reaches me and murders me. So, yeah. There we go. Okay, so let's go back into... As I said, this is actually more or less my debriefing on it, on how to install this actually. Then say my guide on how to do it. But yeah, once you have the memory or the base plate back on, it's not hard actually, because at that point you are just taking one thermal pad, applying it directly to the VRM, and then taking another thermal pad, applying it to a specific spot on the, or not, another VRM, wow, okay. I'm gonna go back to my day job, my normal job, okay? Thank you very much. I'm done building computers. Wow, I'm an idiot. Okay. Another thermal pad. There we go. And you apply that directly to the not the VRM, but to the back side of what would be of the PCB. Actually, not to the PCB. You apply it to the back plate, where it would touch the PCB directly opposite of the on the PCB at least of the VRM. This will actively take the heat that's being put onto the PCB from the VRM and will help transfer it to the back plate, which then your case can help exhaust that heat.
Ammo up?
And with a case like mine, where I do need to mess with my fan layout, but it's something I need to deal with, or that I'll have to wait to deal with probably until next year, because I'm actually done pretty much buying anything for this computer until next year at the minimum. It's just not happening this year. But yeah, I do need to optimize the airflow within this case a little bit more. And so that'll be next year, if ever, in this case. Oh, I might give it to somebody, or to a relative of mine. I don't know. After I phase it out, so... yeah. And if I do that, I will optimize the airflow. But I've not decided what the fate of this computer will be after I'm done with it.
Mission complete, Black Company.
But yeah, that's how that will work. How that works. But yeah, then you have to take your backplate, reinstall it to the back of the PCB with your army of screws. Or you can just wait a minute to do that. You can just leave it setting. Then you take the then you want to take the actual the graphics processor, the GPU itself, and you apply your thermal paste. It's not very hard. I actually put a very large amount of thermal paste. Now, what thermal paste I was using was GLOPS GC Extreme. As I said, I have a tube of it. I've applied it to 2 products so far, both of which have technically been in a TIM swap, and it's running extraordinarily. Or not extraordinarily, but it's running pretty well. Its GPU is about 2 degrees cooler, on average, at load. Now see, I don't really look at the GPU temps at idle too much, so I cannot tell you how much cooler it is at idle, but it is a lot cooler at load. That being said, there you go. So after you've done your TIM, or replaced your TIM, and you've made sure that you've cleaned off the little heat spreader on that spreads the heat, the copper heat spreader that spreads the heat between all the copper heat pipes. And yes, if you look at my card, it does have copper heat pipes. Those are nickel plated though. They are copper heat pipes. EVGA makes sure to use a lot of copper in their products for heat spreading. They do use copper. It might look like nickel, but it is nickel plated. It is still copper. And so you have to make sure that that's cleaned off too. And then you can put it back together, but make sure you plug in fan headers. You can plug in the RGB headers optionally. It's highly recommended because that's the reason you bought the freaking card, most likely. Part of the reason you bought the card was it's flashy. It's got the LEDs on it. For the winds, it has the RGB on it. You partially bought it for that. You bought it partially to have it look good. You bought it for the performance and the looks. Trust me, in my case, it was primarily because I actually would have gone with probably a cheaper version of the 1070. If it was not for the RGB part. And wow, my case is a little hot on the window. Okay, I digress again. Okay, sorry. But yes, there you go. That's why you bought it. Although, then again, when I bought it, it was cheaper than the other models that only had white LEDs. And heck, it was even cheaper than the Founders Edition at the time, which has green LEDs. Which honestly, I prefer a green LED over a white LED any day of the week. But that's why you bought it. You can have it whatever the hell color you want. If you bought it for the win, or classy. So make sure you plug that in. That'll make sure you have the aesthetics of having those LEDs.
Heads up, Black Company.
but
Enemy intel
there,
on the
that
recon
one's not
truck
quite
are
as
in the
necessary
area.
as, say,
Get up your way.
the
You
fan.
can take them out. They'll
If you
lose
don't
their
plug in the
eyes and
fan,
be
you have a
distracted.
major issue. Everything will overheat, because now everything is actively cooled. And you're at load, you probably won't overheat at load. Or not load, at idle. But load will be a completely different story. Because at load, you're going to have the entire, or a good chunk, if not all, of the TDP going into only a heatsink. No fan blowing it around. No, it's not going into the air as effectively, because you're not blasting it with air.
Target destroyed. Hostile PC.
So, it's only going into heatsink, and it's very inefficiently going into the air. If it does not have that placed on it, or that reconnected. So, you're going to go to VRM, the RAM, the GPU itself will have heat issues, worse heat issues than before, especially with VRM. And if you're one of the ones who happens to somehow magically be running a very, very hot 1070 Founders Edition for the win, your issues are going to be so much worse after you've done that mistake. Because that's the only reason it's not hit, or most of the reason it's not hit, like, death point, or the death temperature. Although, as I said, how the hell can you manage that? Because remember, my card, even though it is on an aggressive fan curve, I never really exceed 65 degrees Celsius on it. Or at least on the GPU. So, that's what we're talking about, really. With it is, we're trying to actively cool the VRAM, not the VRAM, the VRM. Pretty darn important you do that. It is within tolerance, and if you feel like you might actually break it doing this modification, just don't bother doing it, and potentially breaking it yourself if you feel like you will actually break it. It was not very hard. I don't think you're gonna break it, though. If you know how to handle it, which means you should have a anti-static workplace, and honestly, my table would have worked. It's not the best anti-static place, but I did do it directly on top of the rubbers, or the reverse side of my mouse pad, to make it better for anti-static. Or to make it more anti-static. I don't think the rubber side of my mouse pad will cause static discharge, and it did not. As you can see, I'm still running my 1070, or actually you can't tell, but I am running my 1070 today, just like I was last week. And once again, I'm not concerned. In case you're running temperatures I've been running today, probably about 60 to 62 C. I'm not actually I don't actually have Precision X on the other monitor right now. Instead, I actually have I have OBS over there for some reason. I don't even know. I don't have the stream over there. I just have OBS. So I'm not actually looking at the chat, sadly. And I don't have my other computer, my laptop. My laptop's not here today. My laptop's in a different room altogether. So that just happens to be how it is today. Although I've had a couple of weird crashes, or a few weird crashes today. I actually did have, last night I actually had Armored Warfare crash after a game. I actually had to restart my computer completely to clear it. So, although, remember, CryEngine is actually rather picky against me. And so hopefully within the next, week, I'll hopefully do some actual testing on the 10 or the GTX 960. I don't remember what settings I was using though, because I've toyed with the settings a lot.
There will be more coming.
But I definitely will not be able to do that one at ultra settings. Or that testing at ultra settings.
Now get over there.
Although I am also not going to do the old Firestrike Ultra testing on that, on the 960, because if you know how horrific a 960 with 2 gigs is in SLI at 4K, you'll understand how afraid I am of even running a singular one at 4K with 2 gigs of memory. It was awful. It was awful. So that's just my thing on it. But yeah, after you've put the cooler back on, now you definitely have to put the backplate on if you've not already. This is the last step in rebuilding your, or actually finishing up the modification process. And after you've done that, you're good to reinstall it back into your system.
Hostile truck, mark. No effect.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not very difficult, actually. And actually, if you want to know what else is not difficult, the same day I actually flashed the BIOS on my desktop. And that I had 2 options how to do it. I could have done it with Windows running, or I could have done it through BIOS. Doing it through BIOS wasn't very difficult. That's how I actually did it. I plopped the new BIOS onto one of my fairly sizable flash drives. Crap. What is with me and fire today? Okay. After this battle, I'm mounting a fire extinguisher. Actually, no, after this battle is the end of the stream. So once again, no global ops. Screw my life. 2 straight weeks of global ops just want to say screw you. Oh well. But yeah, that's it. What it ends up coming down to in the very end was, you just have to know where you're going in the BIOS. Once you know where you're going, and once you know what drive, or what you are flashing the BIOS from, or flashing a new BIOS from, it's not very hard at all to do. You just have to make sure you know what the drive is, the flash drive is that you're flashing from. You have to know you have to make sure you know everything that you need to know. And on a GUI BIOS, it's not very hard at all to do. So, and that's what I like about this. It has a GUI BIOS. Or GUI BIOS. And it only took me like probably about a minute or 2 to find out where the option was to flash the BIOS. Downfall was that my flash drive I used did not actually like the front USB port, the one front USB port, which I happen to know the other one was working because the computer was actually at the same time my 2 TB external was plugged into the other one, and it was being picked up. Now I'm not sure if I have a dead USB port or a dead USB, or half the USB header is dead. I don't know. But I plugged in the flash drive into the back, flash drive works. So, it wasn't difficult, and actually I've heard some bad things about this BIOS. Holy crap. What the... In case you're wondering what's happening, it actually just got really darned windy. So that's what... And that just surprised me because it got really windy all of a sudden. I use the flash drive. Flash BIOS. Flash drive is very nicely clean right now, but I'll probably clean it again. But yeah, that's it, really. It's not very hard to do some of this stuff. Also, still I do need name suggestions for this system. Help me come up with these name suggestions, dang it. I'm terrible with names. I'm actually giving you guys 2 more weeks now. I'm gonna upload this again tonight. Straight from Twitch to YouTube. I'll be reading the comments on about 3 videos within this 2-week time frame that stuff's being posted. And that's where I want to get those name ideas from. And these name ideas will go straight into figuring out, or we'll go into a straw poll. Once that straw poll is designed or set up, it'll be the winner. And that one will be posted on my Twitch. It will also be posted in a YouTube video. And by the next stream at that point, I will be giving you guys the results and everything. So, there you go. On top of that, it's not bad. It's not difficult to do this kind of stuff. And also, actually, this is one more thing, really, about the stream. I will not be live streaming next week. Next week, in case you're wondering, in the United States it is Thanksgiving week. I will be rather busy next week. We're talking primarily Wednesday, Thursday in the United States. I'll be rather busy. Friday, I'm not really going to be doing much. I'm not sure what I'm going to be working next week, because I do have a job. I do have a life. That's why I record and why I was mute for a fairly decent time. Although it worked out in my favor, because this is about an hour long. And I got through everything I wanted to get through, although I did not actually write up my talking points for this week, which was really weird. So, that's what it is. It was not difficult. So, in case you're wondering, yes, next week is the beginning of my really weird winter schedule for how I will be streaming. In case you're wondering, there will be a few weeks or at least a week in December I will not be streaming as well, and potentially a week in January. That is just because of what will be happening and where I will be. I do not want to give you really crappy streams, when I could give you a really darned good one instead. If I'm going to give you a really crappy one, I'm not going to do it. Instead, what I'm going to do is I will find something to make it up to you. And actually, you'll notice it, probably, because there will be since this one will be uploaded tonight, it will be, or upload to YouTube tonight, there will be none for next week, and so I'll probably throw in, you know what, I will aim to get my benchmarking done of the GTX 960, so just alone, this week, and have that up by next week. There you go. Big goal. Benchmarking takes its sweet old time. Because what it is I have to, and actually, here's the thing, it's really big because I do have the 960 I will be using for that benchmarking in this system right now. But it's not actually doing anything. It's actually probably idle right now. It is going to be, I have to remove the for the win, or the N74 the win, shove into 1060, and then do all my, and then while it's offline, do all my testing, and then swap them back out. It's not easy. Especially with that 1070, how big it is. It's not easy to get that guy installed. So, I'll try and do that over this next week, and get that recorded and ready for upload. And I'll probably also throw up my Global Ops video with it, or a week after. And then from there, we'll go into everything else. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Remember to do not come back if you're watching on Twitch, and do not come and tune in next week. I will not be here next week. I will be on. We'll do this the same time, in 2 weeks. Same time, same place, in 2 weeks. Thank you guys very much for watching. And if you're actually watching on YouTube, remember to leave a like and to subscribe. Leave a comment, and also let me know what you want to see as the name for the computer. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.